What up, though? What up, though? What up, though? What up, though? We are live. The Detroit Pistons had an opportunity to win in Boston and snap multiple 20-game streaks, one being the 20-some game losing streak that they are on, but also the 21-game winning streak that the Boston Celtics have in their home court. However, coming out of halftime, despite leading by 19, 66-47, the Celtics come out, outscore the Pistons 35-16 in the third quarter. And despite some really good looks in the fourth, some really good plays from guys like Cade Cunningham, some phenomenal plays from Jaden Ivy down the stretch to keep Detroit in it at all in the fourth quarter and to go to overtime. Ultimately, the Pistons still cannot piece it together. They fall short and they lose this one in Boston to make it 28 games in a row. Obviously, I know, a lot of people are upset and really difficult to see the losing streak continue, especially when this team had, their best chance. I mean, the lead they built was a significant one. They were playing really good basketball to start the game, but ultimately now, like they're in a position where, you know, they, despite having these types of performances, it's not going to be a situation where they can really take a silver lining. Yes, they looked competitive. And if anything, they can take that and say, when they're playing their best basketball, they can compete against anybody on a night to night basis. But you got to prove that by getting a win. And that's the ultimate thing. The one thing you need in order to turn this around and to actually make the Pistons' future look prominent and promising is you need that cornerstone. You need that star to build around. And Cade Cunningham has looked every bit the part and more. Over the last 6 games, he's been playing some of the best basketball of his life. 25 points, 6 assists, 58% from the field, 43 points, 7 assists, 66%. And, look at all these other numbers as well. I mean, it's ridiculous. Cade is looking every bit the part and more. He looks like a franchise player. And, that's the biggest thing that Detroit can take from where they're at right now. They know that this guy can play some really good basketball. The thing is, when they needed their veterans the most, when they needed, those guys to, step up and make shots, especially, when frankly they had some really good looks. Bojan had one of the most open shots of his entire life in the fourth quarter that could have potentially been a significant momentum swinger for the Pistons. I mean, that could have potentially built a little bit more of a cushion. That could have taken the crowd really out of it. That could have put the Pistons in a different situation. Instead, Bojan shoots 1 of 7 from 3 right now. If we had Bojan from the start of last year, Sean would be talking about wins right now, 1,000%. If we had the Alec Burks of last year, we'd be talking about wins right now. Because if you look at their numbers, Bojan, they were a combined 5 of 19 from 3. Let me say that again. Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks were a combined 5 of 19. When you needed your 3-point shooters to step up the most, they were 5 of 19. And then Isaiah Livers as well, who started out the game actually playing pretty well, was hitting a couple shots. He ultimately went 2 of 6 from beyond the arc. He went 1 of 4 from the free throw line. I mean, it just unfortunately is getting beyond the point where it's mental with Isaiah Livers at this point. I mean, it's pretty apparent. I mean, if you're on Twitter, he's kind of blocked some of the prominent accounts. It's pretty apparent that he's kind of just going through some struggles right now just with his game. My opinion, I think that it would be something to at least look at getting him some touches with the Motor City Cruise, just to at least, get him some opportunity, just because, not being able to make shots, not being able to execute on that end, some of the turnovers that he had as well. Like, he just needs to get his confidence back. And, with Killian Hayes, this is a really difficult situation to, ask him to come right back in from, from injury or from the illness that he was dealing with, and to come back, and play the Boston freaking Celtics, and to be a solid contributor in the rotation. And the rush showed tonight, like he had 3 turnovers, no assists. He did have a steal. There were moments where Killian looked like he could put some things together, but he just looked like he was missing the flow of the offense overall. And I mean, listen, the story of the game is, unfortunately, like if the Pistons didn't have this historic streak, the Celtics probably don't come out of the locker room with that same fire. They don't come out with that same intensity, but you see the Pistons streak has gotten to the point when it gets to historic proportions, teams do not want to be the team that loses to the team that's lost 27 games in a row, now 28. They don't. And, like it's a pride thing. It's an ego thing. You don't want to be that team. And I mean, you want to look at the story of the game. Let's look at the story of the game. This box score tells it all. And tell me that it doesn't look like what we've seen all season long. Plus minus. I know it's a stat that not a lot of people like, but it does give you a little bit of a story of what these guys did overall when they were on the court. Look at the starting unit. Look at the second unit. Jalen Duren at -6. I don't think that entirely tells the whole story. I thought he played really well. Did really well on the on the offensive glass this game. 8 offensive boards. Could have been better defensively. Definitely gave up some open looks to Kristaps Porzingis beyond the arc, but it's a really difficult position to be in when you kind of have to, when you're the best rim protector and you don't want him to get out of the paint, but at the same time, someone needs to contest a 3 from Kristaps because he is that much of a unit. I mean, him on Boston is unfair. We could talk about the Celtics in a minute, but ultimately, I mean, this is a primarily Pistons podcast, primarily a Pistons channel. You guys are here to talk about you guys are here to listen about the Pistons, and I'm here to talk about the Pistons. So why I'm drawing it out this much? No idea. But anyway, let's move on. And then you go to the second unit. Isaiah Livers -13. Asar Thompson -1. I mean, he did play pretty well. He had some solid moments on the defensive end. James Wiseman was actually a neutral, but he only played about 13 minutes. They limited his minutes for a reason. And then, I mean, Alec Burks -15, despite, like, yes, he had some clutch shots. There were some moments where he was looking like the Alec Burks of old, but then down the stretch happened. And listen, I think again, it's also one of those things where if Detroit wasn't facing the mental pressure of 27 games in a row, it would be one of those things where it wouldn't be nearly as big of a thing. But that's the type of pressure that is on this team right now to win a game. And obviously it's tough when you have that all bench lineup that has been a issue for the Pistons all season long. And perhaps their most important stretch was with about 4 minutes to go in the third quarter when they were up by about 6. They put Cade on the bench because he actually needed to sit and get a breather for a minute because they had him playing pretty much the entirety of the first half. And listen, I mean, we knew that unit has been struggling all year, but if there was a time where they could, redeem themselves, a time that they could step up, like a moment or a couple moments, mind you, where they could actually, put together some decent minutes, that could really build some confidence for this lineup. And for a minute, it looked like they were actually playing pretty decent. I mean, Alec Burks hit a shot. James Wiseman was able to get a decent look in the paint, actually hit it with some poise. But then the turnovers start happening. Killian comes down the court, hesitates, gets up in the air, passes it because he doesn't want to get the turnover with the travel, ultimately gets the turnover with the bad pass. Isaiah Livers tries to bring it into the paint, realizes he's going up against Kristaps Porzingis. He's up in the air. He has to pass it. And then, of course, it gets right to Jason Tatum. I mean, those are the types of turnovers that the Pistons have been plagued by, unfortunately, all season long. And, yet again, it showed its head in Boston in some really important moments. And so ultimately, it's the concept of we know that Tom Gores has talked about and Troy Weaver has talked about, or Tom Gores has talked about how Troy Weaver needs to go out and make changes, how there needs to be roster improvements. And it's like, all right, well, where does that need to happen? Well, I mean, for one, I mean, this team just needs, just needs shooting, to like an epic proportion. We all know like the stats at this point, they're 30th in 3-point shooting in the league. They're 30th, in attempts. They're, just about last in field goal percentage from beyond the arc. And their lack of ability to make open looks was something that really hurt them tonight. And, like guys like and moments that really killed as well. Like obviously you can look at the little things like the marginal stuff, like the calls that could have been questionable, like the goaltend with Cade, that absolute just split second moment between hitting the glass and going in is just one of those things where, that's just a tough blow to have to endure. But another thing as well, Pistons lost by 6. They missed 7 free throws tonight. That's an area where, especially if you're going to turn around this losing streak, you have to hit your free opportunities, especially when you're in Boston. Going as a team 63% from the free throw line is not going to win you a basketball game. It's just not. And that is the reality of it. So overall, again, the story of the Pistons season, there's moments where you can see the vision. There are glimpses and flashes of when this team is playing the type of basketball that they want to play. They look like they can be firing on all cylinders. They look like there is something to build around. When Cade has the ability to play freely, he has space, he has the opportunity to get in rhythm. He's looked about just as good as anybody has throughout the entire season. But ultimately, when your veterans are not hitting the shots that they need to hit, the reason that they were brought in, to the Pistons organization in the first place, that's one of those things where, that's just not good enough. That's just not going to cut it. And I mean, yeah, I mean, Jalen Duren shot the best from the free throw line for us tonight. I believe it was him and Cade. I mean, Cade only, he only got 4 opportunities. He made 3 of them, but I mean, Isaiah Livers 1 of 4 from the line, Jaden Ivy 3 of 5 from the line. But not to take away from Jaden Ivy, because I mean, Jaden Ivy did show a lot tonight. I mean, he showed an insane amount of heart. He showed an insane amount of poise. He's looking more and more like the Jaden Ivy that we saw last year. And I mean, the amount of intensity that he played with as well was insanely impressive. I mean, he just played some really good basketball. I mean, obviously, the 6 fouls hurts a lot. And when he got fouled out, you could tell that really was a devastating blow to him and I mean the team alike, in overtime. And I mean, that's the difficult thing about extended basketball, right? When you get 5 more minutes and the foul limit is not extended and you have to go out and the game gets more physical, it gets more intense, and he was in a really difficult position where he was, guarding a guy like a Kristaps Porzingis, which by the way, that's a whole other thing is, I don't know what you want guards like Jaden Ivey to do in those situations where, they're in the interior, they have posture. Yes, you can maybe give Kristaps Porzingis some form of room, but I mean, if Jaden Ivey gives Kristaps Porzingis even like a couple centimeters in the post, he loses all advantage as a defender because Kristaps Porzingis is this 7'3" unicorn who can score from every single point of the basketball court. He's like freaking Thanos, like an Infinity War type. He's like an Infinity Stone for the Celtics. It is ridiculous. Just oh, we have Jason Tatum, we have Drew Holiday. Also, we have Kristaps Porzingis, by the way. Yep, that's just another thing that we have to go up against. And, he looked every bit the part. I mean, he had 35 points. He was 3 of 9 from 3. So if he actually hit some more of those open looks he had, he could have really hurt Detroit, and this could have not gone to overtime. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, when he did get the ball and when he did turn it up in the second half, I mean, that was when the game changed. And again, I know it's one of those things where it's tough to stomach because, the losses hurt and I fully get it and I fully acknowledge it. And that one hurts really bad when you're in a situation, especially, in Boston when you have an opportunity to win, you want to execute those opportunities. But if the Pistons continue to play like they have over the last couple of games, like the effort and the intensity that they've played with, if they can continue to get a Cade Cunningham like that, then they're definitely going to win more games. But again, they need to get him some, some form of help. And I know a lot of people are focused on, the reported names of who they're interested in free agency, right? Per Shams, he went on the air the other day and talked about how the Pistons might be interested in going after OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Tobias Harris, and Miles Bridges in the offseason. I personally don't think there's any reason to go after any of those guys at the deadline if those are free agent targets. I especially do not believe that Miles Bridges is the right person to bring into this situation, especially with the history that he has, with some of the, off the court issues that he has, but also frankly because of some of the on the court issues that he has as well. He's not quite looking like the, full sunshine and rainbows, like same Miles Bridges from before, this whole incident. And also, I mean, defensively, there are just some lapses and things that really are left to desire. So I just think from both an on and off the court perspective, I think bringing in Miles Bridges would absolutely be the wrong move, but that's a different discussion for another day. Guys that they need as far as like, they need shooting and they need it yesterday. Or at least they need different role players, people that they can bring off the bench to affect the game because I mean it's gotten to a point where you essentially have to play the starters just about every single minute of the game in order to have an opportunity. I mean, Bojan played 44 minutes tonight. Cade played 43 minutes tonight. And I know overtime, added 5 more minutes to that. But nonetheless, when you're asking those guys to, I mean, Cade can only do so much. You need to be able to actually let him sit for stretches and get guys who can actually score off the bench. And so, as far as like, what types of, guys that you can actually acquire during the season, what types of shooters and role players you can get, that's really tricky because good teams don't want to give up role players. I mean, you might have some teams that sell in the middle of the season because you have about 20 teams of the 30 in the league that are actually pretty good right now, but at a certain point, a team's going to start to struggle. Teams are going to start going on losing streaks. You're going to start getting in a situation where, middling teams decide that they need to take a different direction. And so players might become available. And at that point, you still do have the, potential of Monte Morris maybe coming back in the next couple of weeks. But nonetheless, you need to be able to, get something around these guys that can actually give a boost of energy on the court. I still don't think the Zach LaVine type trade is something that would make much sense just because of you see how much of an effect that just him not being on the court is having for Chicago right now in a positive sense where Kobe White is really being unleashed, where they're playing some of the best basketball they have all season long. And also just with some of the salary that he's owed, I just personally believe that the Zach LaVine trade would just be getting the Blake Griffin of wings. And, as much as Blake Griffin played really well in his tenure in Detroit, I just don't think Zach LaVine can have that same effect. And I think with the amount that he is owed on the amount that he is owed in the salary cap over the next few years, I just still don't think that is a worthwhile investment to make. But it's one of those things where, again, you can only say so much. The Pistons lost another game, right? And not and again I'm not someone that is going to come out and just to tell a little bit about me. I just don't feel comfortable calling for people's jobs. That's just not who I am. I just don't think that that's quite frankly my right, but nonetheless, I mean, I would be lying if I didn't say that there is pressure on Troy Weaver to have to go out and execute and to really make the most of what you have with Cade Cunningham because he's special and he's showing you it. I mean, yes, I know someone pointed it out earlier. He had 6 turnovers, but I mean, it's just one of those things where, I mean, this roster just, they need change despite some of the good looks that they're giving. And I mean, the thing that's perhaps the most impressive is that they're still playing together. I mean, the leadership that Cade's having in the locker room is clearly effective because I mean, after games like that, they're still coming out and playing with a ton of intensity. But at the same time, I mean, there's only so much, that guys like, Cade can do when, you have your veterans who aren't able to come in and actually execute, when your shooters aren't coming in and actually doing what you brought them in to do. And I mean, I know Joe Harris was a gamble, in the offseason. He didn't play tonight. Marcus Sasser, I know he didn't play tonight as well. And I mean, unfortunately, rightfully so, but that's just where it is of, you know, they just need to get help from beyond the arc. And I mean, Ashton, prayers to you and Cade right now, man. All I just got to say is, I mean, he's looking every bit the part. And I mean, the goal this season has to be getting him some help. And that's the objective the rest of the year. I mean, you don't need the proof anymore of whether or not Cade's the guy. He's showing you every bit and more both who he is as a player and who he is as a person. I mean, Bill Simmons tweeted earlier about how blown away he's been by Cade over the last couple of weeks, because this is a moment that's really easy for young players to turn the other way, to get mentally dejected, to not play with your best intensity, to want to think about other things outside of basketball. But he's done the exact opposite. He's taken it personally. He's taken it upon himself. The thing that's most impressive about Cade Cunningham is a lot of people want to be the number one overall pick, but they don't want what comes with being the number one overall pick. But Cade Cunningham wants it all. He wants the pressure. He wants the leadership role. He wants the accountability. He wants to be able to go out and take on the responsibility. And you know what, man? Over the last 6 games, we showed it earlier. We'll show it again. He's just playing his heart out, and if he gives Detroit anything, he gives reason to go get him some help and get him some more players that can execute, that can make shots. Because again, Alec Burks, Bojan Bogdanovic, as much as we've seen that they can make shots in the past, the numbers do not lie. Tonight, they were a combined 5 of 19 from the 3-point line. 5 of 19. Cade Cunningham, 25 points, 6 assists, 58% from the field, 43 points, 7 assists, 66% from the field, 28 points, 10 assists, 6 rebounds, 22 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds, 41 points, 5 assists, 9 rebounds, 31 points, 6 assists, 9 rebounds. I mean, guys, like, the conversation is over. He's the number one pick from that draft class. Conversation's done. I don't care about the losing streak in that aspect. He is looking like every bit the part and more of what you want from a franchise player. And again, Bojan Bogdanovic has played, pretty well since coming back from the injury, but going 1 of 7 from 3 is rough. The 12 boards, though, the amount of intensity he played with, the putback that he got at the end to tie the game and put the Pistons in position to go to overtime was absolutely crucial. He did play his heart out and did put the Pistons in a really good position. But again, I mean, it only is so much, until you get a win. And again, I know it's tough. I know it's really difficult. I know that it can be heartbreaking because, I mean, again, it's been, it was, October 28th, about 2 months ago today was when the Detroit Pistons got their last win. And they have a chance to go winless for, a second month in a row. And listen, that is a really, really tough pill to swallow in year 4 of a rebuild. And I cannot acknowledge otherwise. But if the Pistons play again like that tonight against other teams, like a Toronto at home on Saturday, this losing streak is going to end real soon, folks. I promise you that. If they get Cade Cunningham the help that he needs, at the very least, some form of change, right? Or even just some more shots made, that gets this team over the hump. But again, they have to look at the little things. They have to make their free throws. Going 63%, from the free throw line is not good enough in this league. They have to take advantage of their opportunities when they get them. They have to make their open 3-point shots. This team is on the cusp of the wrong side of history, but at the same time, if they play like that, they can be on the cusp of turning their momentum around. And I do believe that. But again, that's really about it on the game. I mean, I'm hoping Bojan finds last year's form soon. How long was he really not doing anything basketball related? I mean, that's the tricky thing, Chuck, is, I think, he might have still been shooting and doing some light stuff on the court throughout his time with the injury, but that's just the tricky thing with calf injuries is, that you really have to, like play it careful and limit some of what you're doing. And obviously, I do think that that's had some form of effect on him, but I think the true injuries that have really affected this team was the Isaiah Livers injury before training camp. Because, I mean, if you remember, and I mean, granted, it's summer league. I know that it's just summer league, but I mean, over the last couple of years, Isaiah Livers had moments where it's like, okay, he can actually come in and maybe contribute. But clearly, the missed training camp, the missed opportunities to, build off of what he was doing in the summer has clearly hurt him. He has not looked like the Isaiah Livers that they brought him in, but also the injuries to Alec Burks as well. Ever since he has come back from that injury to his left arm, Alec Burks just has not been the same player. And that's just the truth. And as much as he can be a knockdown shooter, as much as we've seen that he can be a microwave scorer, he has not been that for the Pistons over the last couple of months. And unfortunately, it's one of the reasons why they're in this losing streak right now. And so another thing as well is, this is a pretty good point where, Detroit does have quite a few bigs, but they need to have a big rotation where they can get some consistent rim protection. I know that the team did have more spacing and at times looked better offensively, without the two big lineup, without Isaiah Stewart on the court with Jalen Duren, but they did miss him tonight on the defensive side of the court, especially, if he was able to come in and play backup center. That would have been an absolutely big presence to have and could have made a big difference in this game. But nonetheless, he was injured, was unable to play. And I know people keep saying like Drummond off the bench would be nice. And I mean, hey, listen, I do not entirely disagree with you. I mean, if Chicago's, if they're interested in Marvin Bagley or James Wiseman as a little building block, who knows? Who knows? You could actually probably get him for a pretty cheap trading price, honestly. But nonetheless, it's one of those things where this team, again, they have to make changes. They have to build off of what they're, like the success that they are having, but they need to address the clear holes and the clear things that are in that are clearly in their way of getting the next win. And so, you know, Case Cracked asks, Dog the Bounty Hunter asks, what move is coming? And that I can't entirely tell you because I don't entirely know what the market looks like right now. But what I can tell you is it has to be something. So, and it has to be something soon because you can only have so many more nights like this where, you keep facing these just demoralizing losses. And so, again, I still think there's a lot of potential in this locker room. I still think, if tonight shows anything, there's a lot of reason to build and invest in what you have in house and to get them the players that they need to succeed. Get Cade shooting. If you give this guy spacing, I promise you, it will open doors. It will make things, it will make the sun shine. It will take the clouds out of the sky. I mean, I'm telling you, man, call Brooklyn. See if they're willing to part with a Dorian Finney-Smith or one of their 7,000 wings. Call Washington. See if they have anyone they want to part with and want to have any more of a fire sale down the stretch. Get someone, man. That's the point. But with that, folks, thank y'all for tuning in. Honestly, this year's been a little rough for me, full disclosure. Been working the 2-job grind. Pretty much the last 2 months, I've had about 3 days off. But nonetheless, I want to get back to the content grind. I want to get back to, doing what I love, and that's talking about basketball. Despite and whether the Pistons are winning 28 in a row or whether they're losing 28 in a row, that's not going to stop me from talking hoops and coming here and talking with my people. So appreciate y'all tuning in. Really appreciate the support. If you like this channel, hit the like button, subscribe down below for more Pistons and NBA coverage. I will catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you're subscribed.